Friends, just a brief reminder, if I could ask everyone just take a moment to turn their cell phones on silent. We're about to begin the service for Mr. Howard Loewenstein, Olav Shalom, officiating our service today is Rabbi Baruch Hertz.
Begin with Kapitel Tehillim. Michtam l'deva avid shemreini el kichsisi vach martil nei lehemata tavasi ba'alecha l'gdeishim ha'shvaretz heimu v'adirich l'chafzi vam hierbei tzveisem acham eharab al asich neskeim edam v'alasa shmeisem asfasei Adonai manas chalki v'chayis yatat hamagarali chavalim nafli ben imen afanachlas shafra alai havorach at Adonai ashi atzani afleis yisroni chilyaisai Shivi Seidanai Lagli Samed Kimini Bal Amaid Achain Samach Libdi Dagel Chvaidi Af Basari Ishkin Levetach Klesazav Nashli Shel Asitin Chazdecha De Reis Shachas Tedeni Archaim Service Machais Espanecha and Ibis Mincha Netzach. We're here to give Kavod Achrein to a dear friend, a father, grandfather, Yaakov ben Yehuda, known as Howard Loewenstein, someone who shockingly is no longer here with us. Howard's taken. I knew Howard over 30 years ago. When I met Howard initially the first time, I noticed a person who was on a different level, talking about an Ehrlich Yid, a fine Jew, a straightforward person, a tmimistic person. Sometimes in life, these qualities are not always cherished on the highest level. But for the many who were impacted by by Rabbi Yaakov's life, the difference he made in so many people is immense. To explain it, I'd like to say a word on today's parsha. Today in the Aliyah of Shvi, the pasuk talks about. It's a pasuk where sometimes, when you read Mishpatim, we're involved with all the many halachas of Mishpatim, and we don't take note of this few psukim. The pasuk begins and says like this. It's the end of the Aliyah. Havadatem Hashem Elokeichem, you'll serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Uveirach es lachmecha vesmeimecha. Hashem will bench your lechem and bread. Vasireisi machla mikirbecha. Remove the machla. Then the next aliyah, leisia mashakela va'akara ba'artzecha. There'll be no woman who's barren in your land. And the pasuk says, es mispa yamecha amali. I will fill your days. Pasuk talks about, if you think about it, the three most important things a person wants in life. Lachmecha, in no particular order, lachmecha ve'bimecha is parnasa. Hasiroisi machlo mekirbecha is chaya. Lesia mashakela v'akara is bona. You call it Yiddish gefen, gesund parnasa nachas. And then the pasuk says, "Es mispa yomecha amale, I will fill your days." What does mean I'll fill your days? And these are the few words I want to dwell upon. There's a Gemara in Brachos, where the famous Gemara, La'acha Churban, that Nichnasu Talmidav, La Yechnum and Zakai, the Talmidim came and said, they came to him and they found Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai boicha. Yochanan ben Zakkai saved Klal Yisrael after the Churban. Tenli Yavne v'Chachomeho built Klal Yisrael. And they said to him, Hima'ato boicha. And they used titles, Amud HaChazak, Patish. And he said like this. He says, Eini Yodea be'ezu derech malichim oisi. I don't know where I'm going. It's the end of my life. I don't know where I'm going. And I'm not sure which direction I'm going to, Gan Eden or Hakaret. And the Gemara then says, they told him, you are the light of Klal Yisrael. And B'shas P'tirase, he told Panu Derech, because Chizkiah Malach Yehuda came to greet him. Fraktzech HaShaila, you have a question here. Yochanan ben Zakkai, such a giant, had this Shaila where he's going. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the leader of Klal Yisrael. He was someone who made a difference in his whole life to everything which we have today. He spilled the Torah after Churban Beis HaMikdash. Eine Idea is a derech. And if you didn't know the way, why did he ask the question now? It's not a question, it's a question you're asking your youth. The whole life of Yochanan ben Zakkai, he didn't have any other thing to think about. He had one thing, to be Ratzon Hashem, to serve Ratzon Hashem. In the end of his life, he was trying to say, I'm not sure where I'm going. But throughout his lifetime, this kasha never arose to him. Es mispa yomecha amale, I'll fill your days. There are people in life who look for goals and achievements and want in life something else. But then there are people who pashut oivdei Hashem. Avadetem Hashem lekechem. The days es mispa yomecha amale, filling the days of pashut doing chesed and good things. I'll tell you a few small things, incidents, which really, to me, had meaning. I remember when I wasn't in town, he would go over to the Gabba and say, please make sure to wait to the last people finish Shemona Esrei, because I want them to have the schus of Baruch Hu Baruch Shemen Amen. Think about that. But it was a small thing. But he cared about another person, cared about the other person's ruchnius, and cared about their needs. I remember details. For the first year I came here, he came over to me and said, listen, if you want a good price on gas, here you can save, a young person starts out and every dollar is valuable. You can save a few dollars. You get a card and save. Most people don't go out of their way for somebody else to care about a person in such a way so you can save us a few dollars. And then I said, he says the car wash. He told me, I remember the line. He says that because Baruch Hu gives me the car wash that it rains. That's what. But he was a yid who really had an avas Hashem, and Pasha was Ovid Hashem. Really loved to do first the chesed. I know that a lot of people, he's always had a smile. Makabel kol adam b'seiv upon him yafis. I know people on the block, someone who moved in right away, that invitation, first Shabbos, tell them, where are you going? Going to the Loewensteins. Pashit looked out to do a chesed there. Even small things, he sent shlachmanis, he would send the pineapples on the face, those who remember. These small things, but went out the way. It wasn't just sending a shlachmanis. Put a little effort together with Eishes Chayil. Talking about Bechlal in life, the brachas of, first of all, the bracha Chaya, many of us remember the walks they would take together with in the neighborhood. And Pashat, first he saw a beautiful Shalom Bayis. He saw a relationship with his wife, who passed away just 2 years ago, but it was mamish it was so special to see that Ava. First of all, in the walks he saw that there was a closeness, there was a connection. It was a role model, Pasha, of people to see who cared for each other and did unbelievable things. telling you, we talk about also the brachas we want in life. Es mispa yemecha amale means fill my days. Just every day to fill and do good. Just to be an Eved Hashem. I remember in the morning minyan, after 6 o'clock minyan, how it was there every single day, like an Eved. Avadtem Hashem lakechem was an Eved Hashem. Came every single day, and he was there with a smile, ready to daven and be there for others. Very kibbud avei. I had a little bit, in my little bit of the connection, both with Howard's mother, Mrs. Loewenstein, mother-in-law, Mrs. Bernhak, and the kibbud aim was something which a generation can learn from. Sometimes you have to go and zuch and find and see, the person was a good person. Only there for the parents. Mamish in such a special way. Ad yomim ha'achrein, on both, what I experienced, both of the mothers, the pashit, the tapel, in such a special way. That to me was a limud of what it means, kibbud aim. I remember even small things, I can tell you. I spoke, one of the poor people who rented the apartment of Mr. Bernhak said that every year, a menschliche landlord, every year, not only just the landlord took the rent, would send a shlachmanis. And even when they moved, they would still get a shlachmanis every year. Not everybody has that sima slave to care for people. It's not a thing you get put on a wall. You don't get a plaque for it. It doesn't stand out, but it's something which makes a difference and change, and it makes things a thing forever. I know many times in my conversations, Rabbi Yaakov ben Yehuda, you were proud of your children, both your son and your daughters, and the Einiklach, both in Eretz Yisrael, in Chicago, in Florida. That was your nachas. I know you would like to spend time. You would talk when you came home each time. You Pashat enjoyed not the vacation, but Pashat seeing the schus you had to raise a generation of bonim of bnei bonim, oiskim Torah mitzvahs. Not everyone has that kind of schus. I know that it was the most important thing to you. I know that it was exciting to you. There's something every time that you spoke about it, and it meant a difference forever. And that, obviously, I know the family watched, and you were a tremendous role model, what it means to be of tzedakah, of chesed, of kindness, of giving, of being there for someone else, of being there, of filling the days with just kedusha and ruchnius. We say, Chaval al the Avdin, unfortunately, as we give you cover the Achrein here, and we say that, Mitzvah Hashem, you left behind a generation, a beautiful family, who is of bonim b'nei bonim. You left behind the mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim that you did every day is eternal, is nitzchi. It's la'olam va'ed. The goodness that you accomplished and the difference you made in people's life will be there forever. And the Eibishter should help, as we're now standing in Azman. Klal Yisrael needs rachmim rabim. I know for sure that as you go together, Lamaila, I know for sure that as you cared here in this world, for Yidden here in Klal Yisrael in this world, and you cared for people in a way, we're living in this man now with both in Eretz Yisrael, where we need Hashem, the country which Ein Hashem lekecha b'amareshis Hashana, but we need Yeshua's Hashem keherafayin. So I'm sure you will talk to the Rebbeinu Shalom to bring Pashat another day of Shalom. Should be no more Nevgoyim and no more Sardis in Klal Yisrael. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bring. We know that the emes is. We say we're now right after Shabbos Uvarchim. Mishenichnas Adam Marbim b'Simcha. I know it's not a simcha, but it's a simcha in a way. It's hard to even imagine that you're not here with us. But the simcha, when a person lives a life of shleimus, lives a life of metase shleima. Your name is Yaakov. Yaakov turned around before and he said, I had the Shiftei Yisrael. I was able to see the Shvatim of Avatasi Shleimo. You lived a life of to watch your Bonim and Ebonim, Shleishim Rebbeim, Torah Mitzvahs. If you lived a life, it's the Simcha of that. And the Simcha also is, but we know the only real Simcha is, Bibila Amavas HaNetzach, Mocha Hashem Dimam Al Kolponim, will have Kipshutai, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, should bring us the Gulam B'Titzvah Shleima. As Minig also, but that we ask, as the Levaya continues to stroll, everyone who around tried the best to make your life possible and did everything possible, both obviously the family and all those, but if in any way someone was not doing Chvaydai, we ask that you should be Meichel and Maspadal and only bring brachas to each and every one. We'll now hear from the B'nai Mishpacha and the children and grandchildren, followed from some Rabbanim in the community.
It's hard to prepare for a speech like this. If I heard you actually just reminded me that you asked Mechila. My father just said a couple of days ago, in the beginning, randomly in the day, it's like, I mochel everyone for anything that was done to me. And he said that a number of times recently. I know my father would, and I know I don't want to forget about it. I know my father would like to thank people. He always wanted to do that. He was always appreciative of that and always was makar tov. So I want to thank everyone who has helped us in this difficult time. We were very private about it. My father likes to be private. We all like to be private. But the people who did know and who helped us, we'd like to thank them, friends and family. We would like to thank Dr. Grimblatt, all the doctors at North Shore, Northwestern, who were with us throughout this difficult time and who really did their best. I can't even begin to thank my two sisters and their families for what they've done for my father. Dasi has the tremendous chus to live in Chicago and to be by my parents' side. And once I remember, she was always helping them. When COVID began, it came to a different level. And basically any of their needs were taken care of by Dasi and her family. After my mother passed away, it was an even higher level. My father came for supper every single night, every Shabbos meal. And I tell my wife Shira this all the time, that like words cannot express that karsatov that I have for the Finkels, for everything they've done for Bubby and Opa. And Aviva, somehow she's able to do so much, even though she doesn't live so close. She lives in Florida, but she could do so much. And even if she's not here in Chicago, the amount that she was able to do over the phone and to host my parents for weeks and months. And they would be able to have nachas-filled vacation with their family. And my parents had a beautiful relationship with the Finkel and the Goldenberg grandchildren and my children. And it's very special, and I want to be makar tov to everything that my sisters do. And anything that I'm missing, also my father would be makar tov for. Rav Henoch Leibowitz, I think, said he was my Rosh Yeshiva, I think he said, this predates before I was born, when his father was nifter, he said that I lost my Rebbe, I lost my mentor, and I lost my best friend. I think that's what he said, but I'm pretty sure. But I would say the same thing here, that I really feel that Daddy, as I will probably, hopefully, if I have my thoughts organized enough, I'll explain. I lost my Rebbe, I lost my mentor, and I definitely lost my best friend also. My father, Howard, or Yaakov Loewenstein, was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, to Julius and Francis Loewenstein. They were German immigrants who came over, during World War II. They got engaged and married in America. My Opa kept Shabbos, even when many in his community struggled with that. When my father was in 8th grade, Rabbi Patashnik from Cincinnati, I think he was Chabad, I'm not sure. Was he? I'm not sure. There was a rabbi. Okay, Sharp. Okay, fine. Anyway, at Sharp Senior, right? Okay, so then he recommended my father be sent to yeshiva. So if Gifter came to their house, back then it was a different world. So if Gifter came to Cincinnati to give bechinas, so he came to their house, and he asked my father, "What's the halacha if someone were to steal they were in the living room, were to steal the TV here?" So my father told Rav Gifter that he probably pays kefel, but since it's embarrassing to carry a TV around, because it's embarrassing to walk around with a TV, then maybe you get a discount just like Dal V'Hei. So, I guess he got accepted to Telz. He went to Telz, and he used to describe that he was a good bacher. He had fond memories of learning Gittin and Telz, particularly the sugya of Dio, Gabi Dio, he used to mention to me. He forged many strong friendships in Telz. After Telz, he went to college and he had a master's in math. Ultimately, he married my mother in Eretz Yisrael. They came back to Cincinnati for, I think, a year, and then 50 years ago, they moved to Chicago, where they lived the rest of their life. I guess I give a little synopsis. Opa was a very practical, responsible person. He was a real czars. I'm calling Opa Daddy, whatever comes to my mind. If anything needed to be taken care of, it was done. He took care of it. You know, he's still hacking me about, you know, why I'm still working on my taxes for 2020. I'm sure he already has his taxes filed. And he was a real czar. He took care of everything, but it wasn't just making sure things were done in advance. He was persistent, and he made sure to continue to try and try and try whatever, anything that he could do, any way he could help, any way he could try, he could do things. He was very persistent. I actually said the story, I think, at my mother's Levaya, the lax box story. There's the lax boxes in Erie Crown, and my parents were very persistent, so we sold a lot of lax boxes, which was delivery, Thanksgiving to deliver these packages to help support for your 8th grade trip. And basically, we sold a lot of lax boxes, and like 100, like no one else would do that. And there was this other family that sold a similar amount, and they were trying to fit into the back of their car, my parents, and my father was like, "Oh, we can't do it." I think it was my father who pushed. I'm not sure, but the bottom line is, they're both of their personalities. They said they pointed to this other person who had the same type of car and who had the same amount of lock boxes, because that was the other family said they're fitting in their car, so we could fit it. So they fit all the lock boxes in their car, and then later on they found out that the other family did it in 2 trips. So, and that was really what they really pushed and accomplished. My father and my mother, they're really one unit, but my father very much pushed and accomplished by just trying and trying again and not giving up. And we saw that also in the past 5 years also, past 2 years also. He just wouldn't give up. He was the ultimate family man. He was a giver. He was always giving. We can't express it. I can't even describe it properly. He always would ask, "How can I help?" On the phone, he'd always be wondering. And he was sick more recently, and he was compromised. And somehow, even though he was compromised and sick, and it was more, I'm not getting into details, we're staying private, it was really more in the past 6 weeks, but, you know, he was getting older also, and somehow he was able to help. And he always had something to help with. And when we were younger, of course he helped. And like we're talking about family, he took his, you know, they took care of my bubby and my Oma. My bubby came into our house for 5 years. It was 5 years, right? For 5 years. And she was an old lady, and she had personality, as we know. And my mother used to say, people would say that about my mother. We would think about my mother, "Oh, you're such a tzaddikus," in a sense, and she was, for the kibbut avim that she had. And it was a no-brainer. It wasn't like tzidkus, it was just pashut. My mother used to always say that the real credit goes to my father, because to bring in a mother-in-law bring in your mother, okay, but to bring in a mother-in-law into your house, and you're a man also, and bring in a mother-in-law, and privacy and all that stuff, it's so difficult. And I would mention this to my father, and he would say it was such a zechus, it was so beautiful. It wasn't even a Mesiras Nefesh for him. And with helping us, he would help us, with the gas station, he'd help us find flights, deals, different things, help navigate life circumstance, help give us advice. I spoke quickly with my wife, Shira. She was mentioning how even like potential shortcomings that we might have, he would somehow find a way to guide us to work on them. And I have thought about this in the past, but that's definitely, as I was growing up, I remember definite stages in my life as a teenager, and there were times when he would say a certain thing, like the way he would give tochacha was just like, you can't act like this. This isn't appropriate. Whatever the thing he was being mochiach me about, and it wasn't very common, but it was so sincere, and it came from such ehrlichkeit that, like, I'm not talking about something that's not ehrlich, but such emes that this is you don't do this, and he would do that. He was always there. There's always something that he was doing to help people. If I would call him up, and I was out of town for many, many years. If I would call him up, he was always doing something for some kid or grandkid or who knows what. He was always taking care of something, and that's one aspect of the family, being a family man, the giving that he did. Another aspect is how much the relationships, the silliness that Opa had. He was very, very sophisticated, extremely sophisticated, but he didn't really have gaiva, and he was willing to be as silly as anything with kids or with adults. And we had the Opa laugh, and he was our best friend, and that's what he was. And I guess I'll switch to, I'm not as organized. We didn't have so much time, so I'm just going to be switching topics. So then another topic that I wrote down that we can't miss, we have to talk about, is Opa's connection to Torah, to Daddy's connection to Torah. I remember when I was growing up, we used to, every single Sunday, we would have a learning with the Niddickmans, and the kids would joke around like, are we here to learn, or are we here to like get together every Sunday? Because for us kids, that's what we were doing. But in fact, what happened was we got together, we ate supper or whatever it was, and the kids would play, and then the parents would learn. And that's what would happen. It would. And then, he had a job and he was working, but me and him, we had a Seder also I remember when I was in high school, and Beis Medrash, it lasted for a long time. We had a Seder learning brachos. We went straight. We learned 15 minutes a day, and it just kept on adding up. All those minutes added up to more and more blot of learning. And then when he retired, he pushed very hard with the Loewensteins to have a kollel. They didn't have one then, or maybe they did, but whatever, I don't remember the variations, but to have something for seniors, for people who are retired, to learn. And he was one of the founding members of that kollel. I remember Rabbi Loewenstein saying that Rabbi, Rabbi Zalman Leib Loewenstein saying that that it's a siman. The dedication he had to learning is really a siman to, the ones that you had. He was working. He couldn't do a morning seder when he was working. But if the second you retire, you go and you do a morning seder and you learn, you get the schar for like your whole life because you were going to do it then also, and you had achraya, so you couldn't do it. And then he, as a little side point, I remember when we found out that he was sick, which was he was whatever, had an illness that was like around 5 years ago, and once again we're being private about it. I remember the first thing he told me, he's like, Ephraim, when are you going to learn for smicha? And I immediately started learning for smicha, even though I was pushing it off. And when I got smicha that day, I had two different smichas, but the day that when he was in Eretz Yisrael, we had a smicha as celebration. We went that morning to Rav Chaim Kanievsky Stam actually to get brachos. And at the end of the day, he said, this was the best day of my life. And it was so meaningful. It showed how much he cared about Torah. and cover the Torah. Later on, I realized also he happens to say that all the time. He happens to have said so many times because the hatava of Hashem. He would always say that this was the best Yom Tov in my life, and I'll get into that. Let's keep going. And then there was the Daf Yomi, and he started learning Daf Yomi, and it was a commitment, and he just kept on going, and he would learn and learn and learn every day. My mother was sick, and he's in the hospital learning Daf Yomi, and he was in Eretz Yisrael. We have a bris for Ruvain, and he's there learning Daf Yomi. He's learning Daf Yomi everywhere. He had very Biederman sheets that he was always into. We were in the we were in the hospital, and he didn't have so much koach one of these Friday nights. He was very weak, and I brought out a sheet of Biederman, and he I don't even know if he could turn the pages really, and he was very weak. He was on and off, but that was a weak hour. It wasn't so good, and he was very tired, and he took the page, and I turned the page, and he was like reading the Biederman page. He was sleeping. And then he gets the page, and he loved it, and he told me he made a Kabbalah that when he realized he wasn't able to do Daf Yomi, he made a Kabbalah, meaning when he was the last 6 weeks I'm talking about, the last 3 weeks, the last 2 weeks, he made a Kabbalah that I can't do Daf Yomi, but I'm going to show Hashem that I care and I want to finish Shas and I want to learn. So I'm going to learn something every day, and the schus of that Kabbalah should be refuah. And he stuck to it. And I don't remember, 3 days ago, he was very schwach. Very schwach. There's not much, he was very fatigued. And I said I learned with him, and he was following, actually. We were learning Kalim, Bor and Kalim. He was following, and it was very hard for him. And he said that after I go, tell them that I was very sick. When I was this sick, I was still learning Daf Yomi. We were learning the sugya on Daf Nun Gimel and Baba Kama. As I said, we fell behind of Ibn Nassan, Kila Kalish Chalume, which is a very deep sugya. And it's my hope that when he goes to the Yeshiva Shamayla, that he's going to get to learn Kileka. He was very shvach. He couldn't really even chap the case, really. And he's going to be able to learn Kilaka on the deep levels with Rav Nosson. And I remember Rai Trapper, Mashkiach and Chavos Chaim Zechor and Levracha, actually, he said that when people their lives are cut short and they're not able to finish a goal that they set forth and they were going to do, something like this, Hashem is nechshav kilu, you finished it. So Daddy, based on that Masorah, it would seem that it's nechshav kilu, you did finish us. Daddy, your bitachon was tremendous. We can't talk, you can't even, when I say Rebbe, that's a big part of it. You're a Rebbe in everything. You're our mentor, you're a Rebbe. But you taught us not to worry. You taught us to be good-natured. I will never forget, actually, how I was here 2 years ago, and we were sitting with Yehuda Perlman and going through documents, and he made like some mistake on his phone or something, and he's like laughing. And he just lost his wife, and there were many, many, many tears that were shed after losing my mother. But even during the hard times, he was able to find the ability to laugh. And it wasn't just being good-natured. It came from bitachon in Hashem. He didn't worry. He didn't feel it was worth it to worry. And if you look at I haven't looked at it recently, but if you look at a piece in Rav Chaim Kanievsky's Musar Sefer, I forgot the name, that talks about Daiga. My father really, in a sense, followed what Rav Chaim Kanievsky talks about, Orchos Yosher, I think. And he was a boteach, and he said many times recently that Hashem provided me all the needs that I had in my life. I never was lacking anything. And he did not live a very affluent life. We weren't poor, but we weren't rich. And I don't know, there might have been times that I felt that way. I'm not sure if I did or didn't. I probably didn't, but maybe I did. But he lost his wife. He had many sorrows. He had back pains. It wasn't easy for him to walk sometimes. But all of his needs are taken care of. He just pushed through, and he didn't focus on the bad. He just focused on the good. When things were getting a little bit more with the illness, we thought that things might, get worse. I remember him telling me clearly. I was standing in Eretz Yisrael in my parking lot downstairs, where I used to like my phone booth there, and he would say, Hashem is more than welcome to do whatever he wants to me. And that was during hearing potentially bad news. Hashem is more than welcome to do whatever he wants to me. And later on, he would say that everything Hashem does is good. It's not a question. I just daven to Hashem to please align that which is good to what we think is good, if possible. If possible, Hashem, can you please align that? But it wasn't a question. His Yehi Ratzon, Shehei ha'esak hazeh refuah shlema ki rofei chinam ata, baruch rofei cholim. His bitachon in Hashem, his understanding of Hashem, and his teaching that to others. He was a Rebbe. He taught that to Goyim. There was a Goyish nurse that, I don't want to focus so much on illness, but it just came up recently, I guess. There's a Goyish nurse that put in her notes that he said everything's in God's hands, and that was his nature. And it made a profound impact on him. And he tried to be Mekayeh Shem Shemaim, but it wasn't just to Goyim, it was to us. He taught us all. He gave us the strength. He was my Rebbe. He taught me how to go through grief when I lost my mother. When we found out initially about him, I asked him, how do you deal with it? You lost your father when you were young. He lost his father when he was relatively young. I don't know. I think younger than me. I don't think he, at that point, said so much. He's like, oh, no, it was whatever. But he subsequently told me many things. And he taught us to be strong. And that was the strength that comes from bitachon and closeness with Hashem and understanding that everything is from Hashem. I'm almost done. He would care about Klal Yisrael tremendously. Hertz was talking about the tzaros of Klal Yisrael. I remember when the tragedy in Meron happened, he was crying profusely. My mother said that he just lost it. And my father's not of Hasidish. He's gone to Meron, but, he'd never been there Lag BaOmer, let's just say it that way. And my father actually has a lot of emunah and bitachon and those type of things also as well. Anything that this could have power, but it was so sad for him, the tsaros and how it could be on such a beautiful day. And then more recently, he would daven. I heard him davening out loud during Shema Kolenu, saying, Hashem, please, all these soldiers, everyone's getting hurt. Please save them from these horrible tsaros. And Hashem, make a Yeshua for all the whole Klal Yisrael. And Hashem, please, when you make that Yeshua, please include me in that Yeshua. His tefillah, I remember as a youngster, I remember I used to be next to him in shul. He used to say we're like pals in shul, and we weren't schmoozing. I remember him closing his eyes during El Kainatzor. I remember that clearly. And I was under a bar mitzvah. I remember that clearly. His Kabbalah Shabbos at home when he was more homebound. His Kabbalah Shabbos in the hospital also. It's beautiful. I can't keep going because there are other speakers. Daddy, you were definitely my Rebbe. You were definitely my mentor. You were definitely my best friend. There are 3 shutfin for each person. It's Gemara and Kedushin. Create the person. 3 shutfin. Gemara and Kedushin. There's the father, there's the mother, and there's Hashem. I feel a little young. My parents were, in these days and age, a little younger than maybe back in the days in Europe, people died those ages, but a little young to lose both parents. And I just heard something somewhere saying that, official Schechter, I think, saying how everyone is born in their own, some people are the youngest, some people are the oldest. It's a good time for me to hear that. It was interesting. But we have 3 shutfim in the world. And 2 of them are going to be doing the work in Shemayim, so we're not losing them anyway. We don't lose our parents when they go. The relationship just shifts to the metaphysical in a sense. And we give and they give in different ways. But even bringing that aside, we know we have the third shutuf. We have Hashem. And Hashem's going to take care of the family. And that's what Daddy taught us. To have that bitachon. Us as a family would have wanted to keep it up like they did into the parents' 90s. We would have all wanted to do that. Baruch Hashem, we all got a chelik in doing a lot of kibbut avim. And we're so happy we had that chelik, and it was such a pleasure for us. And Daddy, you were not a burden. We loved you. And I will quote again Rabbi Trapper. Hopefully that applies here. I hope that if we had that opportunity, we would have done it. And it should be nechshav ki'ilu. We did keep it avim into parents being in their 90s. I want to ask you, Mechila. I'm not the most mature individual, as some may know. And I have a personality. And definitely more in my youth, I would be feisty. I want to ask Mechila. On behalf of the whole family, I want to ask Mechila. Your anava and your lack of gaiva allowed us to potentially not respect you as much as we should have, and not appreciate the sage wisdom that you always have had to offer us. As I got older, I tried to learn that. But there's a lot to ask Mechila for, and we're confident actually that you would be mochel. But it is our responsibility to ask Mechila because it was wrong, a lot of things that we did do. And Amir Hashem, you're going to go up to be together with Mommy again. With Bubby, with Oma, with Opa. You're going to get to meet Zadie. And join our Lekdoshim Asher Ba'aratema to be a Meilus Yosher for us and the whole family. And may it be, we see how the din could be a real Yeshua. And may we have Yeshuas and bracha from this, and may we recognize that. I just remembered something, I can't skip it. I was going to close, but I can't skip it. I just remembered a line he said. I can't skip this. He told me on Shabbos a few weeks ago, and he was thinking a lot about life. And he looks at me. He was in the hospital. He looks at me and he says, Ephraim, this was all worthwhile. Crazy. He said, Ephraim, this was all worthwhile. To have the tzaros that he was having. He says it was all worthwhile. What I learned about life, I learned about Hashem, the closeness of Hashem and Kedusha. So, yes, Hashem, we should have grown from this also, and may it be worthwhile for us. We don't understand that. We don't understand Hashem's ways, but may we see the bracha. Hashem Elokim Dima Me'al Kol Panim.
I just put my thoughts together this afternoon at 5 o'clock, so it's not exactly all, getting everything that I want to say, but it's pretty close, and a lot of the stuff Ephraim touched on. We're gathered here tonight to mourn the passing of a Pashut Yid. Whenever you hear that line, you know you're not dealing with a Pashut person. We're dealing with somebody special, someone unique, someone with amazing qualities. I'm just going to go ahead and leave the love of the family for the last, but let's learn tonight some lessons, life lessons, especially, the grandchildren, but everybody, these are things that are life lessons. Again, Daddy was my mentor and a close friend, and, he was my father figure and everything like that, and he was really, meant everything. Daddy lived a life of yashrus. with a strong moral compass, instilled in him by his parents, Oma and Opa, that his father took a lower paying job in order to keep Shabbos back in Cincinnati, and his mother was also a pashut, just the Torah, you follow, good, and they brought him up without not important the luxuries and things like that, just being a erlicha person, without even hearing the expression until later on in life. He lived the teachings of Aaron Soloveitchik, who had a great line. He said, Frum is a galach, a yid muzdain erlich. He said, a priest is a religious person, but a Jew has to be straight and honest. Daddy was the highest ranking employee. He was in charge of numerous VA hospitals and facilities. He called the shots. But when the opportunity was afforded for him to get a quid pro quo kickback, he wasn't even tempted. He knew the pashut pshat of v'halachta b'drachav. Just follow the way that Hashem wants. No, the stamp of Hashem is emes. He was my mentor in making these ethical choices in business, and I'm really happy for everything that he guided me, and he set me up on a path of success. Number two, as I mentioned at Mommy's Levaya 2 years ago, which is exactly 2 years to the day that he came in for his final illness, which was, Asar B'Teves. And we had to see him at his bedside and everything like that. I said back then, I said that the only way he was able to keep his sanity during Mommy's, 1, 2, 3 quick illness was by voraciously learning Torah. Once he retired, instead of sitting cruising on a yacht, he joined the kollel of Rabbi Lauer. That brought back memories of his days in yeshiva, and he just said, hey, you know what? This is cool. This is good. He got into that. He got into it. He started really getting back into it, and he decided to take on the challenge of Mount Everest, Daf Yomi. He stuck to it. He was excited to learn Bava Kama. He just started Bava Kama a few months ago. He was so excited. He said, it's the first time in my life I'm learning Bava Kama. And he was so happy, and he was excited to learn all the different sugyas in Bava Kama. And again, as Ephraim mentioned, on Shabbos Shira only 8 days ago, he said, I want you to go ahead and announce by my Levaya that I took a Kabbalah on myself to learn every day. And I want to inspire other people to realize that even when, no matter how sick a person might be, learn for a few minutes each day. He used to read Likutei Pshatim, Torah Tavlin, and Rabbi Biederman every Shabbos. A few weeks ago during the blizzard, it wasn't that much of a blizzard apparently in Chicago, but I don't know, I'm all the way up north where I'm working. And he was spending, as a VIP, he was there. We had him for the last, we had him for 5 days at our facility. So Dasi and I, we booked a hotel up there, and we drove down, and we quickly, crossed the street to get back quickly with the Shabbos food that we needed. And I made a mistake. I brought up all the papers for him before Shabbos. Said, Daddy, I printed everything for you. Here you go. Here you have everything. So I come up there, for a couple of Shabbos. He says to me, where's the Rabbi Biederman papers? I said, it's over here. I tell you, I printed every single thing you answered from me. It's all here. Couldn't find it. It happened to be in my printer. He was so disappointed, at that point, even though he was a Yekka, but the fire of Hasidus was in his kishkas. He was missing those 36 pages of Rabbi Biederman's Hasidic Torah, to go ahead and keep him warm on that freezing cold night. And again, all of us have our own, feelings, Dasi and I have more tendency towards Lubavitch, and Ephraim has many different Hasiduses, and it's again, he was an all-purpose kind of person, because again, Jews are Jews, and everyone has their own unique ways. Number 3, the thing to go ahead and take listen is you're making a Kiddush Hashem at all times. Again, when he was sick in Northwestern Hospital, he educated one of the world's foremost doctors of the concept of Rapo Yirapeh. Hashem is the healer. You're just a messenger. And the doctor just like, I agree with you. You know what? And she was saying to us at the end, she said, it's unbelievable. This is how he lived his life. He was a God-fearing man. When a patient comes into a facility, they need to take a picture for medical records purposes, and they take a picture to upload it into the system. Most pictures of most patients have the look like they would rather be anywhere else but there. Daddy, when he came into the facility, he had this beaming smile on his face. He was just so happy to be there, to be able to be around and out of the hospital and on his way to recovery, because I'm in a rehab center. I'm going to rehab myself. Let's go. Even though he had no kayak and anything like that, the OT and PT were basically doing the job for him, lifting his arms and lifting his legs and everything like that. But he said, I got to do it. I have to go home. I want to be independent. I want to live myself and get out of here. And it was amazing. Everyone, everyone loved him, the entire staff. And no matter how he was feeling, whenever any staff, any CNA, any nurse, doctor, housekeeper, anyone walked in, his face lit up and was smiling and was upbeat with them. Because again, you have to go ahead and show our Karas Tov and be, that was the Kiddush Hashem that he was living. It was a true zechus that had been entrusted to care for Daddy's needs 24 hours a day while he was a guest VIP at my rehab center. Being able to give back just a little bit of all he did for me by arranging the best medical team who were understood and were explained to and very simple. The Daddy is to be treated as a family member, as if they were treating their own child, as if they're treating their own spouse or anything like that. Do not consider cost or policy. Take the policies of the hospital and let it go away. All right? Cost. Don't go ahead and start counting pennies. Again, it's your family member. This leads to the final. This leads to the man on the mission to do everything possible for his family. He knew Ava. Ava, the word love, comes from the root word hav. Give. The more you give, that shows that you love somebody. There was nothing he didn't do for his children and grandchildren, but most of all, his wife. There wasn't a day in the last 2 years that he didn't bring a missing mommy, with the walks and with the care and everything like that. They had a tremendous, relationship that will be treasured and remembered by everyone. The amount of time that each of his kids spend with him in the last 6 weeks are unreal. From Aviv and Ephraim picking up on a moment's notice to fly in to take care of Daddy, to Yerucham and Shira having to stay back home and take care of the fort. Nothing stood in the way to reciprocate and give back just a little bit of the love that Daddy always gave to us. Daddy used to say to me, you know what, your kids are great kids. Your kids are amazing. They visit me for hours each night. It's just for the mitzvah. It's not just for the mitzvah. They actually like spending time with me. All right, the love that he gave all of us will be treasured forever. Again, he was a family man. He was a erlicha person. He was always looking out to make Kiddush Hashem. And he will be missed. And It should be a Melas Yosher for the family and all of Klal Yisrael.
This past week's parsha, we learned about someone whose name was Yisro, who was the father-in-law of Moshe Rabbeinu. I thought of that when I was thinking about what to say, because Yisro was an amazing person. The Torah says so much about him. And there are some things about Yisro that remind me of my father-in-law that I want to talk about. So last week, the parsha says that Yisro had some advice for Moshe, whatever it was, the way he ran the decision making. So he gave Moshe his advice, and it says in the pasuk, it says, "Vayishma Moshe kol chosno," and Yisro listened to the voice of his father-in-law. Vayas kol asher amar. He did everything that he said. And that really is something that applies to my life, my wife and I, the relationship that we had with Daddy. And we always asked him for advice, and he always gave good advice. He was like, especially in the beginning, he was like our authority on life. He knew the answers to everything. He gave us advice about vacation. He gave us advice about parenting. He gave me advice about work. He always had good advice about how to deal with work situations. He had tons of experience with that. He was a CIO. Ran everything. So starting out, there was always questions that I had. He always had the best advice. He gave us advice about cars, buying cars, fixing cars. He knew everything. When I got a little older, sometimes I had my own ideas too, but especially in the beginning, he was always the go-to person. Another thing that I want to mention about Yisro is a little story that we learned in the parsha last week. It says that Moshe saved. He was at the well. He saved Yisro's daughters from the shepherds. So they came home, and they told Yisro what happened. He said, "Why did you come home so early?" They said, "There was an Egyptian man that saved us." So Yisro says to them, "Well, why'd you leave him? Why don't you invite him over?" Just a small little chesed, and that ended up. Being that Moshe married his daughter. And I thought about this, and it reminded me a little bit of something that I went through when I first met my wife, and Shadchan Rabbi Singer, who set us up. So he kept on saying, when he would talk about my wife and her family, he kept on telling me, Aviva, her father, is such a nice guy. He's such a nice guy. And he told me this over and over again. And it was very interesting because he was my shadchan for a long time before that, and had set me up with several other people. And I don't think, it could be he said something, but I don't remember him saying that about anybody else. So I thought that was very interesting, and that's why I remember it so well. And the truth is that he was completely right. Daddy was such a nice person, and that was something that I got to see so well and so often over the next whatever it was, 21 years. He was just so nice. He was so nice to me. He was so nice to my kids. He was just so nice to everybody. But he was just so. It was just. He was always had something nice to say, something pleasant to say. Whenever we would sit down, of course, we spent a lot of time together over the years. He stayed by us for months at a time, and it was always just so good to sit at the table and just talk with him because he was just such a nice person. And also, he was very giving. With my kids, he was just very. I know this is a little repetitive, but just from my perspective, he was just very close with all the children. And I have memories. I have so many memories. We did so many things together. We went on vacation together. We did a lot of vacations together. And we spent a lot of Yom Tovim together. We always got together for Sukkot every year. And it was such a good feeling. I remember every year just coming to their house for Sukkot. And it was, as I would walk into the house, I would just be so happy to be there because it was such a wonderful experience to be there for Sukkot and to be there for Yantif, to be together. Like I was saying, he was very close with the children. And I remember one particular Sukkot, when my son Asher was about 2 years old. And I just have such wonderful memories. I mean, not just that Sukkot, and there was Pesach also when he was like 2 years old. But Daddy was just so close with the children, especially the little ones, and could relate to them on such a wonderful level. And I remember that after a whole Sukkot, he made an announcement at the end of Yantif, and he said there are two things that happened this Sukkot, and I can't repeat them because they didn't mean anything at all. But one of them I remember was about a certain word that Masher had made up. So you just get an idea of the kind of relationship that he had with the kids. He used to take us to the botanical gardens, and we used to walk there with our kids when they were little. And the adults we'd all walk together, and the adults would be talking, and Daddy would be walking with the little ones, and he would be making up stories as we walked through the gardens, and these stories they were completely made up. They had no basis in reality at all, and what I also used to make up stories for my kids, but when I would do it, it was like it was a struggle because I had to make something up. It was a challenge, but when Daddy would tell the kids stories, it was effortless. They would just blend into each other one after the other, and he could just keep on going for hours. There was so much imagination in his head. It was just unbelievable. And the kids, they were just when they were little, they just it was just such an amazing experience for them. He was very into his miras. Yantif was so special with his miras. Like Ephraim had mentioned, that there were times when he had to daven at home, and there were times when he was davening in the hospital, and it didn't slow him down. His davening was just as meaningful and just as special to him, even when he wasn't in shul. He was able to make it what it should be. We used to go to Eretz Yisrael together for Pesach, and he brought us everywhere. He knew everywhere we should go. I had never thought of renting a car in Israel. For some reason in my mind, that was something you just like a little afraid to do. But he introduced me to that, and I drove there. I was afraid to do that, but he knew how to do everything there. He knew everywhere to go. We went to Maras HaMachpelah together. I remember how amazed I was by watching him daven at Maras HaMachpelah. I remember that one of the things that I was very inspired by is his davening. Like was mentioned also, I was able to see how he took care of his of Oma and Bubby, and there were many years that I was that I was witness to this. And it was really something very special to see. And I remember hearing him say many times when people talked about him taking care of Bubby, and he said it was such a pleasure, even though for some people it might not be such an easy thing, but it was something that he was very happy to do. It's just amazing looking at everyone here, the family that he built. We have three families of B'nai Torah that are here because of his devotion to Torah and his devotion to learning. He was always into learning, and he was always into learning. But for him, retirement wasn't an end. Retirement was a beginning, because that was when he was going to get more into learning. And he was going to Kollel. When he was in my house, I got every night. He did not miss Daf Yomi. It doesn't matter what was going on. He always did the Daf Yomi. If he was sick, if he wasn't feeling so well, I always saw him doing it. Another thing about Daddy that was very inspiring to me was that he modern day society is so much materialism, so much taiva that everyone is into. But Daddy wasn't into any of that. For him, life was about avodas Hashem. Money was not important to him. Materialism was not important to him. The purpose of a car was a way to get from one place to another. That was all it was. He didn't understand why you need to have a nice car. It didn't make any sense to him. Couple other things. When he was sick, he was always positive. He was always positive in general. My wife told me his blood type was B positive, and that was his motive in life, is always to be positive. And he was positive. Everything was always good. Everything was positive. He was sick for many years, and you wouldn't really know it, because he lived life to the fullest. And even though it wasn't so easy to be sick, but he continued doing everything he was doing. They still came to us, for months at a time, like they always did. They still went places, and he made the best of it. And it was really amazing to see. He used to say that Hashem gave me everything that I need. And that's what he felt. And he should be a Meilus Yosher for all of us. Mach Hashem Diyun Al.
I just wanted to speak on behalf of all the grandchildren and just say a little for Opa. So I want to thank Hashem for the fact that we had such great, amazing grandparents for all these years. Opa is one of the biggest family people and the best grandfather we could ever ask for. And Bobby was the greatest grandmother we could ever ask for. We, the Finkel grandchildren, couldn't be thankful enough for the zechus that we had. Just for the fact that we lived over the past 20 plus years, just only a few blocks away from our grandparents, and Opa and Bubby for coming over to our house pretty much all the time, and more recently Opa coming over ever since Bobby was nifter, for Opa coming over to us pretty much every week, every day, until just 6-7 weeks ago, whatever it was, when he got more sick and he wasn't able to come. We spent many years together, and we'll never forget any of the moments that we had together with Opa. Opa loved staying up very late at night, and we would all of the grandsons from the Finkel grandsons loved to come over to Opa's house at night and just keep him up until let's say 2 in the morning, or sometimes to whatever, however late it got, to eventually we're at a point where we all agreed that it's late enough and maybe we should call it for the night. But he never stopped talking about that. And like that was just something that he loved. And the zechus that the Goldenbergs had, that Opa used to come to Florida for Miami for winter, like ever since he was retired. But even before that, like he always told us about how he saved up, like throughout when he was working, he always saved up weeks and weeks of work time and like of vacation time. And as his years of work went on, he continued to build up more and more vacation time, and like he would spend tons of that time in Florida, and he loved going there every winter. And it got to a point where like he was there for like more than half of the winter in Miami, and like he would always make sure to come back to Chicago for like part of the Hanukkah and part of like whatever it was. But like he spent like a big bulk of his winter in Miami, and like even recently when he got sick, like he talked about it, but like that was something that like he wanted to do, but like he had on his bucket list, but like something that he just couldn't do because he wasn't able to. And I guess the Goldenbergs also, they went to Eretz Yisrael with Opa several times, and they met up at, I don't know how many years ago, but maybe a few years back. Opa and Bobby drove to Tennessee, and then they met up in Tennessee and had vacation together, just the times that they spent together like that. And then Opa and Bobby also, they loved their visits to Eretz Yisrael, their visits to the grandchildren, the Loewenstein grandchildren. And even when they couldn't come, like Opa always talked about how he's planning, he really wants to go, but he couldn't go, whatever. But like we would come over and like they would show us videos and Zoom calls and stuff, that all the grandchildren calling in and pictures and whatever it was. And like he loved those things. And when we would come over, he would show us, like he would go on his phone looking for videos and things that have of what the Ephraim and Shira sent over, and then whatever, he loved showing it to us. And Opa loved his grandchildren. Like whenever any one of us called up, and if something came up and they couldn't pick up the phone, whatever it was, he made sure to call back as soon as he could later on, and he was very apologetic for the fact that he couldn't pick up. But he always made it his business to make sure to call back, and that was something he really, like grandchildren with him, so such an important thing to him. We're never going to forget his laugh, his humor, his miras that he loved so much, his playful nature, the way his constant simchas achayim, his emunah was truly something remarkable. He always told us, made it very clear to us that everything that happens in this world is up to Hashem, and there's no such thing as something, if it happens and that's what Hashem wants, there's no questions to ask. He recently told us the famous line that I never asked anything. I never asked Hashem when He did good for us throughout my life. Like He had everything. He was never lacking parnasa, never lacking anything. And he told us, like, if throughout my life I never asked on Hashem when He did good. So why should I ask now when, like, these recently things are going a little bad? But in the end of the day, it's all one big good package. He's true Baal Emunah, and he also told us about how he said it very clear to the doctors. Like when the doctors tried to convince him that he only had like a certain amount of time left or whatever it was, like he made it very clear to them that you're not the one, you're not the boss, and there's no questions. It's not up to you. A few weeks ago, a couple of us are calling Opa, and we were telling him how, like, when it's a birthday, when someone has a birthday in the family, we like to give each other brachos or whatever it was. And he told us, and so we told him, like, one of the brachos we'd like to give is that like, especially now Opa is a little more sick. Like we told him, like it's, and we were always very clear, like we wanted to make sure, like, Opa and Bobby, but now Opa should be there for all of our chasanas. And he told us, like, we should make sure, like, the bracha, add to your bracha, not that I should just be there, but make sure that I should come in with not just that I should come, but I shouldn't be being pulled in by the strings and just barely making it, but I could actually be there. But I guess Hashem had His other plans. But yeah, we all remember the time that one time we were at their house, like years back when we were younger, and like we were playing with Opa in the basement, and throwing like I think a beach ball or some kind of ball across and throwing it back and forth in the basement, and then one of us hit some light lamp in the middle of the room, and like Bobby was going crazy, and like Opa was like, "Don't worry about it." And then the same. I don't know if this was the same day. That was one story, but then there was one day that we came when we were younger, and like I guess our parents they're busy, whatever it was. They left us all there at his house, and one of the kids were playing with one of the rolling the kitchen chairs, and the chair came rolling down the stairs and like broke the wall at a few different points, and like and then the same day, one of the kids was in the kitchen. They started peeling off the kitchen tiles, and someone else spilled over one of the what's it called, a flower pot, and dumped it all over the floor. And like he said, don't worry about it. Like we'll take care of it later. And like he was always like that. When it came to grandchildren, like there's no questions. You cared so much for everyone. So we're all gonna miss you very much, and you should be made as close in your for the entire family, for all Klal Yisrael.
When people will ask Rabbi Yaakov, what do you do? He said, I learn and daven. Even though he had a very choshev job, he never spoke about it. He had a very important position. His whole life was really, he loved going to shul, he loved learning, he loved davening, and spent every free moment learning and davening. The main shul where he would go on Shabbos and also spend the later years of life learning was Rabbi Eichenstein shul. I want to hear from Rabbi Eichenstein.
There aren't too many people who we could say Hakeveya mukim letfilusai alekei avrum be'ezroi. What type of kviyas mukim did Rabbi Yaakov have? A kviyas mukim of 50 years. Day in, day out, when he was here. And when he was not here in Chicago, his heart was always there with the Chevre, with his friends, with the Besmedish. As it being part of his family, as we just heard. And I'm not going to repeat everything that was said, even though it's the feeling, and that's why it's being said over again and again, because it was so true. The feeling that he had towards his family. I would like to pick 2 points. The Chevre, and as the Pusik starts in this week's Parsha, Ve'ela mishputim asher tusim lifnayim. Ve'ela mishputim, certain times we see there's something called mishpat. There's din. Rabbi Yaakov lived a life full of life. Always growing, always steiging. Many people come to these stages, these years, and they're on the way down. Rabbi Yaakov didn't let go. He growed in all areas. He was growing. And the truth is, this is what was his initial feeling when meeting the Rebbe. My father is Zintin Stark. Being attracted to a mukim where you had to be sincere, committed, and devoted to Torah and Avodas Hashem and Ehrlichkeit. Rabbi Yaakov was a true Shul Yid, as those in the Besmedish know that this was one of the special titles that the Rebbe gave for special Yidden. This was a big compliment to be a Shul Yid. It's not so much in style today. People have a lot going on, and Shul becomes one of the things on the checklist that has to be done, and we finish with it for the day. But a Shul Yid means that this is your house. Just like you enjoy going home, you enjoy going to shul. Not being a burden, not being something that has to be done, something that you like to do. A shul yid. That was felt every time you walked into shul. As a matter of fact, tonight, I told my son that Rabbi Yaakov Loewenstein was nifter, and right away he asked me, so what's going to be with the shtender that's in the shul? As everybody saw, not too many years ago, he brought a new shtender into the Bismedish. And those that remember the old shtender that was there for so many years, Yomim Neruim, this is one nekuda. The second nekuda I would like to mention is, many people have a lot of special qualities that they can live their lives with. The Rebbeinu Shem creates every person special. What happens sometimes is they get busy with looking what others have, looking what they're missing. Rabbi Yankiv lived his life with being a sameach bechelkai. As the Even Ezra says in last week's parsha, one of the says Adibris of Lois Achmaid, how could you tell somebody not to be chaymed something else? Says the Even Ezra, Dvurim Neirum. Such beautiful words. He says, just like a mushal, you tell a simple person, I want to go to the moon. It's not possible for you. It's not negay to you. It's not something that you're yearning. It's not something that you feel you're missing. The same thing is, if you don't have it, it's not for you. You're not missing it. Rabbi Yankiv had a special midah, and people sometimes think that this came natural. I'm sure it wasn't natural, and I'm sure there was a lot of work on his part to be able to live his life being such a sameach bechelkai. Through him being a sameach bechelkai, he was not missing anything. He was able to focus on his family, on his avodas Hashem, on his Torah, on his chevre in the Bismedish, on his friends, on enjoying every moment of life. Rabbi Yankiv and his Eishes Chayil were people that enjoyed life, which is such a bracha that many yearn for. Today's Epsul Salanter's Yartzeit. I'd like to say over a story, and we'll finish with this story, as we have heard so much already that we could take with, Asher Tusim Lifnayim, to take with further. Epsul Salanter said that he started the Tnuas HaMusa, which is so well known, because of a story that happened. There was once two partners that were in business together. They were shoemakers. They lived in the same city. They would sit together in the same place, work together for many years, till one decided he's going to continue on in life, and he became a businessman, and he became very successful. Time went on, and he became well known in the city, Askin, Rosh Hakol, and he was meshadach with the Rav in the city. Under the chuppah was a big simcha. His partner, the shoemaker that still was a shoemaker, came in front of him by the chuppah and took off a shoe and asked him, how much does it cost to fix the shoe? The mechutin, who was now the Rosh Hakol, well-to-do, who was meshadach with the Rav, had such a busha, he fainted. Said Epsul Salanter, If a person could go so low to do such a thing by a child simcha, a chasana that you're making, to be mevayish somebody else, I have to start the Tnuah Samusa. There was a chussid in Eretz Yisrael, a Biyana chussid, his name was Amnute Tzeinvet. The Amnute Tzeinvet said over this story, and he said, I would like to say, the reason why we have to start Musa and learn Musa and Chassidus is not because of what a person could do to be so low, to be mevayish another person under his chuppah, but because a person could faint when he sees such a thing. That's why you need the Tnuah Samusa. Instead of feeling ashamed and down, he should have said, Ribono Shel Olam, thank you so much. I was a simple shoemaker, and now look how you have bestowed on me such chesed. Look how much you gave me. Rabbi Yankiv ben Rabbi Yehuda, our Tayyeh Chave, Echad Mibnei HaChabura, one that was part of our life from before I was born, was somebody who was forever thanking the Ribono Shel Olam for what he has, whether it was for his Eishes Chayil, for his children, the Talmidei Chachomim, his Eineklich that he learned with on the phone came over, we heard all the time about him, his sons-in-law, his daughters, his friends in the Bismedish, the Sheurim that he went to, the Chavre and the Koilel that he felt so close to. He was a Sameach Bechelkai. And with that he will be Zoiche, to Mirz Hashem continue, to be a Sameach Bechelkai in Gan Eden, to be a Sameach Bechelkai with what he left over on this world, till will be Zoiche Mirz Hashem, to the Tchias HaMeisim in the Bias Goyel Tzedek with the Binyan Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, which we will all come back together in Yishlayim HaKodesh, V'sachzena Eineinu B'shivcha L'tzion B'rachmim.
Our community lost a wonderful chashuva gem of a person today. I know Howard from Chicago Center is Mata Aaron Morning Koil. He was a person who was, as mentioned, was a Baal Bitochen. Someone took a achrayus for other people. He loved Torah. He loved his family. We're so grateful for the wonderful care he received from his children. Yesterday, we learned the Aseret HaDibros. Noichi Hashem Alekecha Asher Titzicha Meretz Mitzrayim. The Medrash asks the question, why did it say Lashon Yachid? Hashem was talking to 2 to 3 million people standing at Har Sinai. So why is it Lashon Yachid? Why is it the singular? There's different answers to this question. You can answer that by Har Sinai, there was a level of achdus. Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Ahar. Rashi says, Ishacha b'leibecha, we're all united together as one. So Hashem was talking to all of us collectively, all of us as one. So that's why it's Lashon Yachid. But the Medrash says that Hashem was looking at each and every Jew directly at them, talking to you. I took you out of Mitzrayim. You have to keep the Torah, you have to keep the mitzvahs. Doesn't matter what everybody else does, whether they keep it or they don't keep it. I'm talking to you, you have to keep the Torah. And these two answers describes who Howard was. He was part of the klal. He looked out for others. If during the shiur there was some noise in the hallway, he would get up firmly but respectfully explain that we're learning Torah over here. This happened many times. And lately, when he wasn't there, I said if Howard was here, he would take care of us. He sponsored breakfast many times to Mahana Olam, to give schusim. But he's also a Yochid. He was a Ben Aliyah who grew to great madrigas mitochan Hashem. He lived with Hashem in all circumstances, not just in theory, but l'maisa. A few days ago, he called me. It was essentially a phone call to say goodbye. He used this call to thank me for the impact I had in his life. And I was shocked. He was so calm, so positive. Didn't hear a negative word. He said, I'm not afraid. Hashem is with me. He's helping me. He's taking care of me. He didn't just say the words, but you could hear it in his voice that he meant it. It was real. Even the worst times, Hashem is with me. This is not an insignificant level to reach. The Ramchal writes the tachlis of a person in this world, the purpose while we're in the world is to recognize that everything's from Hashem. I have no control over my destiny. It's all from Hashem. This is the level Howard got. Instead of being depressed, withdrawing into himself, at this time he was busy thanking others, being an inspiration, Munas Hashem. When Yosef interpreted Paro's dream, Paro was overwhelmed from Yosef. He told his Avadim, Hanimtza, Kazais, Isha Sheruach Elokim Bai, can we find such a person? The Ksav Sefer explains, what was Paro so inspired by Yosef? He saw a tzaddik, person who was ruchnius. It's not me, it's not Kadosh Baruch Hu. Whatever Hashem tells me the dream is, it's not from me. But he also saw a person who all of a sudden organized an economic plan for the whole Mitzrayim, save the country, save all the food, put it away for the years of hunger. And these are two traits that usually don't go together. Rare combination. Howard was a very ruchnistic person. He loved to learn Torah. He always came to learn. And when he couldn't come anymore, he tried his best, kept up with Daf Yomi. He mentioned last week how he wished he would be able to finish the cycle of Daf Yomi. On the other hand, he was very sharp, savvy. He used that to help other people. He had a ticket, don't worry, you don't have to cancel it, you can get your money back. He explained all the details, all the intricacies, he knew all the pratim to save Yiddish Geld. I lost a dear friend today. The Zayar says that when a person is nifter, all his midas taivas, his milas, become hefker, free for the taking, for anybody to grab. We can grab his great Benam Chavera, his B'tochan Hashem, his Avas Hashem, Torah, Klal Yisrael. Tehei nafshe tzur b'tzur achayim, bilan hamavas l'netzach, u'mach Hashem Elokim dima ve'al kol panim.
Please rise, Kamala. El Moler Achavim, Sheikhim Eroimim, Hamsim Lechim Chayna, Al Kanfi Ashchina, B'maylas Hakdeishim Teirim Kazera Kiyam Hazirim Es Nishmas, Rav Yaakov ben Yehuda, Shahalach Le'lamai, Pavush, another tzedakah that's cursed on Shmasai, Began Eden, Temen Chasai, Elechem Balarachvim, Yastirei v'seisech nofa v'leilamim, v'yitzror b'tzra chayim es nishmasai, Adonai hu nachlasai, v'yanuach al mishkavai b'shalai, v'neimar amen.
Friends, this concludes our service here in the chapel. Kavur will take place in Eretz Yisrael at Har Menuchos, Tuesday, approximately 1:30. Memorial contributions in Mr. Loewenstein's memory can be made to the Chicago Mitzvah Campaign. That information, as well as information that will be forthcoming regarding Shiva and Minyan times, will be on the website, Emet Hashem, in the coming day, as well as hopefully some emails from our community that we can look forward to. At this time, I'm going to ask the grandsons to please come forward to help serve as pallbearers as we are Malava, the casket from the chapel across our lobby.